Hello, welcome to Unit 4, Lessons 10, Tax and Tip. Your learning objective for today's lesson is to be able to understand and solve problems about sales tax and tips. So we're going to be taking what we've learned about percentages and now applying it in more real-world applicable situations. One of the ways that percentages are used the most often in the real world is with this idea of tax and tip. So tax is obviously money you pay on goods or services that goes to the government. And then tip is what you provide to servers at restaurants, as their minimum wage is very, very low in the United States, and they make most of their money from tips. Most people, when they go to a restaurant, they'll tip anywhere between 15 and 20%. Let's take a look at the first activity. So this activity is a notice and wonder. So you're on a vacation and you buy a pair of sunglasses for $10 or less. You find a pair with a price tag of $10. The cashier says the total will be $10.45. So what are some things that you notice and what are some things that you wonder? So go ahead, pause the video, and just jot a couple ideas down. So some things that you may have noticed is that, maybe you notice that the sunglasses cost $10. Maybe you notice that the total cost is more than the price of the sunglasses. And maybe you even notice that that price is more because there was sales tax added. Okay, so you could have noticed some other things as well. Maybe you wondered if the cashier made a mistake. Maybe you wondered why the total cost was more than the price for the sunglasses. Maybe you just wondered what is the tax on the glasses. So those are just some things that you may have noticed and wondered. So let's look a little bit closer at this and talk about some what's happening here. So in the United States, when you purchase an item, unless you are part of a non-for-profit group, you do have to pay sales tax. So in this case, we know that the sales tax was 45 cents because the price of the sunglasses was $10 and the total cost was 45 cents more than that. So we know that that is the sales tax. Now, when you pay sales tax, it's never just a flat number. It's always a percentage. So in this case, we're at what percentage of 45 cents, what percentage of $10 is 45 cents? Well, let's figure that out. So if we go with our idea of old versus new, okay, we know the old was 100%. We're trying to figure out the new, so we're going to pause there for a second. And then we also know that the old was $10, but the new was $10.45. So to figure out what my constant of proportionality is, I'm going to do 1045 over 10, and I get 1.045. So I know I'm multiplying by 1.045. 100 times 1.045 is equal to 104.5. So we can see that this is an increase of 4.5%. So in this case, this is how much sales tax they're paying. I will tell you, it's not typically 4.5%. Depending on where you live, in our area, I would say most sales tax is around 7 or 8%. If you go into the city, though, it gets up to 11%. So it really does kind of vary based on where you live. All right, let's take a look at the next activity. So So different cities have different sales tax rate, like I mentioned. Here's the sales tax charges on the same items in 2 different cities. Complete the tables. So what I want you guys to do is finish filling out the table. In general, you're going to start with finding the tax rate, which is the percentage. So what is the tax rate for each city? Once you know the tax rate, you can figure out how much sales tax is being paid. And then from there, you're going to do the total cost. To figure out the tax rate, you can kind of use this similar idea of what we did up here with the table. Or maybe you don't need the table at this point, and that's fine. So see if you can figure out what the tax rate is for each city and then calculate the new price. So go ahead, pause the video, and work on that independently. All right, so let's calculate the tax rate for the first city. So if I use that same idea of old versus new, okay, again, our old is 100%, but we don't know the new percentage because that's what we're figuring out. We do know the old price is $8, but the new price is $8.48. So I need to figure out the constant of proportionality. So I'm going to do 848 over 8, which is equal to 1.06. So I know that I'm multiplying by 1.06. So if I do 100 times 1.06, I get 106%. So this is 6% more than what we started with. So I know the tax rate in this case is going to be 6%. Now that I know the tax rate, I can use that to help me find the sales tax. So let's finish filling out the table. So for the lamp, if we see that the price was $25, the sales tax was $1.50, to figure out the total cost, I'm just going to add those two together. So I get $26.50. For the price of a pack of gum, it's $1, but I don't know the sales tax, so I do need to multiply that by 0.06. Remember, we don't just multiply by 6, we do have to take it out of percent form. 1 times 0.06 is just 6 cents. And then my last step is I'm going to add those two together, so I get $1.06. For the laundry soap, the price was $12. Again, I'm going to multiply that by 0.06. 12 times 0.06 is 72 cents. And then I add them together, so I get $12.72. Now, for any given price, I know I'm going to be multiplying by 0.06. So that's 0.06 times x. And then the total cost is just adding x to that, right? So that idea of 1x plus 0.06x, which can be simplified to 1.06 times x. All right, let's look at city 2. So for city 2, again, if I use that idea of old versus new, so I have old, I have new. So my old percentage, again, is 100. Don't know the new percentage. My old amount is $8. And my new amount is $8.64. So I'm going to set up my ratio of 864 over 8 and divide. And in doing so, I get 1.08. So I know my constant of proportionality is 1.08. 100 times 1.08 is 108%. So I see that that's an 8% increase. So I know my tax rate is 8%. Okay, let's finish filling out the table. Total cost for the lamp in this city is going to be $27. Okay, to figure out my sales tax for the pack of gum, I'm going to multiply by 0.08. Again, make sure you take it out of percentage form. It's not 0.8, it's 0.08. So that's 8 cents. And then I add it together to get 1.08. For 12, again, I multiply by 0.08, which is 96 cents. So my total price is $12.96. If I have any given price, I know I'm going to be taking that price, multiplying it by 0.08, and that will give me the sales tax. So that's 0.08 times x. But the total cost, I need to add the original amount to that. So x plus 0.08 times x, which is 1.08x. So just remember that when we're talking about sales tax, that's the dollar amount. And when we're talking about tax rate, that is the percentage. Again, just like we've been learning all unit, anytime you calculate with percentages, you do need to take it out of percent form first. So just move that decimal 2 places to the left. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to skip activity 3, so you can just go ahead and cross that out. And let's move on to the 4th activity. So this 4th activity is dining at a restaurant. So it says Jada has a meal in a restaurant. She adds the prices listed on the menu for everything ordered and gets a subtotal of $42. For those who don't know, subtotal just means how much are they paying before the sales tax and the tip. So you have 3 questions that go along with Jada. And then if we go on to the next page, we see we have a new bill. They tell you what the tax rate is, and they want you to figure out how much would their sales tax be if another person had a different subtotal. And they also said some other persons would be $1.61. What is their subtotal? So here you're in question A, you're determining what the sales tax is. So that's the dollar amount. Question B, you're given the sales tax and you need to figure out the subtotal. So go ahead, pause the video, and begin working on that problem. All right, let's take a look at the first question. So when the check comes, it says they also need to pay $3.99 in sales tax. What percentage of the subtotal is the sales tax? So we're going to use that same idea we've been using throughout this entire process of old versus new. So old, new. So our old percentage is 100%. Our new percentage is unknown. When the check comes, it says they need to pay $3.99 in sales tax. So if our subtotal is $42 and we pay an additional $3.99. So although typically in the past we will write the price, the new price after you add the $3.99, let's keep it as just $3.99 so we can figure out what that percentage is. So to figure out the percent or what the constant of proportionality, I'm going to do $3.99 divided by 42, which is 0.095. So I know I am multiplying by 0.095. 100 times 0.095 is 9.5. So I know my percentage is 9.5, and that's my tax rate. After tax, the total is $45.99. What percentage of the subtotal is the total? So again, I'm going to use old and new. So I have old, new. I'm working with 100%. We don't know the new percentage. 42 is now going to 45.99. So I do 45.99 over 42, and I get 1.095. So I know my constant of proportionality is 1.095. So 100 times 1.095 is 109.5%. So when you're debating between these percentages, you have to read carefully. The numbers that they're using in question A is $3.99, and then they want the subtotal. And then for question B, it's $45.99 and the subtotal. So you have to look carefully on how you're going to set up those percentage or those tables to calculate the percentage. Next, it says they actually pay $52.99. The additional 7 is a tip for the server. What percentage of the subtotal is the tip? So still doing old and new. So again, I'm using 7 and the subtotal. So my old is 100%. We don't know the new. My subtotal was 42. My new is 7. So I'm going to calculate 7 over 42. And that's approximately 16, not 16, sorry, 0.1667. It's repeating fraction or repeating decimal, so you just round. So I'm going to multiply by 0.1667. So 100 times 0.1667 is 16.67%. So it's about 17% is what they paid. You'll find a lot of times when it comes to tipping, you don't use a exact percentage. People will typically just round up to make it easier. So if I was going out to eat, I probably wouldn't have paid $52.99. I probably would have just paid $53. I'm not as concerned about the percentage as I am about just making sure that I give them enough. All right, let's look at question 2. So it says another person's subtotal is $24.95. How much will their sales tax be? So if I know the tax rate is $24.95, again, set up my old versus new. Okay, my old percentage is 100. My new percentage is 9.5. I know that the old amount is $24.95. I need to figure out the new amount, and I need to figure out my constant proportionality. So I'm going to do 9.5 over 100, which is 0.095. So I know I am multiplying by 0.095. So 24 times 0.095 is approximately $2.37. You do want to round for this. It's like 2.3702. So we would just round to 2.37. You may have also not needed to set up the table. Maybe you just went straight to here, and that's totally fine. Whatever works best for you. All right, last question. Some other person's sales tax is $1.61. How much was their subtotal? So again, set up our old and new. And the reason why I like tables like this is because it organizes our data in a way that makes it easier to solve, right? The previous problem was pretty straightforward. We knew, maybe you just knew you had to multiply by 24 by, actually that should have been $24.95. Sorry. Multiply $24.95 by 0.095, and that's fine. This one's not as straightforward though. So setting up a table really helps us with organizing that data. So old percentage, always 100. New percentage is 9.5. Old amount is unknown, but new amount is $1.61. I already know my constant of proportionality is 0.95, and if I was moving left to right, I would multiply by 0.095. But I'm not moving left to right. I'm moving in the opposite direction, so I need to divide by 0.95. And please use a calculator for this. I would not expect you guys to do this long ways. So I have $1.61 divided by 0.095, and that approximately equals $16.95. So again, we had to round. It was like 16.947, so we just round to 16.95. Now, because we were rounding, we don't know for 100% certainty that it was $16.95. We just know it's going to be around that area. So if you had something a little bit, I would say anything from $16.90 to $16.99 would probably be an appropriate amount. Just make sure you have your work to support your answer. Now, we utilize tables to solve this, but we could have also used equations, and I do want to practice that real fast because it is an important concept to know. So I'm going to go back to our previous problem, and actually no, let's keep it in this problem. So let's say that our unknown is x. What we can do to figure out that new is just multiply by 0.95. So I would end up, if our old is x, our new is y, our equation for this problem would be y equals 0.095 times x. What this allows us to do is, regardless of the situation, we know that we can either calculate either the sales tax or the subtotal by just using this equation. So just a reminder, we had some new vocabulary happening here today. We really talked about that idea of tax rate, and just remember tax rate is always a percentage. We talked about sales tax, and this is always a dollar amount. Oops, not sure why I wrote a percentage sign. Dollar amount. We use the tax rate to calculate the sales tax. And then we have subtotal. Now this is the amount paid, dollar amount paid before tax and or tip. Okay, this is kind of like our old, right, in our table, our old amount when we're using a table to solve. The tax rate is going to be your constant of proportionality, so that's our top. Whereas our sales tax, this is typically the new amount. I just want to point out here that we're not really utilizing this in a way that we're talking about percent increase. We're just using this old versus new to calculate, well, what is the sales tax versus the subtotal. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to submit for points, and then you can go ahead and get started on the cool down. Thanks for watching, everyone.